Let's make some festive Christmas stars for the Christmas tree. So you've got this sort of decoration that you can embellish with extra beads, and I'm going to show you how to make the basic outline, and then it's up to you to be as creative as you wish. For this project, you will need your usual plier kit, which is round nose, chain nose, flat nose, and your wire cutters. And the wire we're going to use is 1.25 aluminium and also a little bit of 0.4 silver plate. To get started, you're going to make a little circle with the round nose pliers at the very end, and then decide how long the points of the star are going to be. So I'm going to go to about that height, which is just under an inch, and then keep bending the wire backwards and forwards like a zigzag. And because I want 5 points, I'm going to go backwards and forwards and make 5 little zigzags like this. So when I come to the 5th one, I'm going to cut it off the spool just under the last line here. So I'm trying to get these as even as I can, and this one a bit lower than that one. So that's your framework. Now you're going to turn the circle at 90 degrees to the frame so that it's sitting up like that, and then just tease these points out. And as you tease them out, you'll see that they want to go in a circle and create that framework. To connect and secure it, bring the end of the wire over the link and make sure that it's secure and it's held in place so that it can't lift. And now you need to manipulate that shape. You just tease it and pull it out like that and open up the points until you start getting a sort of, it will look a bit of a mess to begin with, but eventually I hope it'll look less like a starfish once you've used your tools and your pliers to straighten out any kinks and bends and shape it into a frame. So there we have it. Now to secure that, we need to get the steel block and the whammer. And it's the steel head of the whammer that you need to work hard on. Just putting it on the edge of the frame. And you can see it's curling up a little bit. If I wanted to flatten it out, I'd use the nylon head just to bring that back. And if you want some texture on your star, you can use the dapping head. So let me get that on. So I will just take the nylon head off and put that on the end of the whammer, and then I can texture this gives a nice little bit of, I was going to say star quality, but it's more a bit of bling, a bit of sparkle to the wire. And again, if you want to, you can see it curls up when you hammer it. So if you want to flatten that down again, put on your nylon head again and just hammer that flat. It won't take away the texture on the opposite side. So there's your star frame, which is nice and firm. And now you can decorate that in any way you like. I'm going to show you how I do a spiral to fit in the center. So again, it's just make a little circle, and then we're going to hold that circle and bring the wire around itself. And you just work from the spool. So you're just curling the wire around itself. And actually, because this wire is so soft, you could actually just do this with your fingers like this. It's aluminium and it's great for decorations because it's so light. And you're going to make this the size to fill the inside of this framework here. So depending on how big you've made your star, you'll make it that sort of to fill that space. I mean, there's so many ways of decorating these stars. You could use the thin wires and cover them in beads. You could just use your imagination. So we're nearly there. That's about it. That will fill that inner space. Then we cut that off from the spool. And we want to secure that initially from one end. So if I make a little link on the end there and turn it at that angle, I can then hook that onto some area on the side of the frame and just squeeze that down. So that's just connecting it just at that point. And now I can use a little bit of the thin 0.4 binding wire. I'm just going to cut a little bit of a length here and sew in these little points here, because otherwise it's going to, as you can see, it's still very loose. So if I get into the edge of that framework, I'm going to pull that thin wire and just bind in. It's like having a little stitch or sewing stitch in there, and that will grip it in on that little corner there. And then I can bring the rest of that thin wire behind and sew it in at the other area there. And again, it's just a little stitch to hold it in place. So once it's in place, you can cut off any excess wire. So let's pull that through. And make sure that you see these wires at the back, they can just be tightened by tweaking them. And now again, because you've got a spiral, you can always push it and give it a little bit of a two-dimensional feel to the frame. And if you are making, you can obviously decorate in many ways. I've got a smaller one here that I've made earlier. I can always link one to another. I can always decorate within those. You see, I could glued a piece onto here, and I've also wired beads onto these different points with 0.4. So there are many ways of decorating your stars and creating beautiful Christmas decorations for your house.